Okay, in this video, we're going to look at the Pandas library in Python. This is used for examining data and performing some calculations, and allows you to sort the data in various ways, as you'll see. So I'm going to go over some of the more popular functions that you would use, some of the features. To get started, you're going to want to install Pandas. That's very simple, and it only takes less than a minute typically to run the install. It's pip3 install pandas. It might be pip3 or pip depending on what you use on yours, and you just would bring that up in terminal, your terminal app, just to see. In Visual Studio, you can actually run terminal right in here, but in case you're not using Visual Studios, you would run it right here and just put in pip3 install Pandas. I'm not going to run that because I already have it, but that's what you would do. Just hit enter. Anyway, so one of the more popular ways to bring in data is as a CSV file, and you have this built-in function in Pandas called read_CSV, and then you just put in the path to your file. We're looking at this file here, which are population values throughout the years from 1952 to 2007 for most of the countries in the world. So an interesting data set that we're bringing in, and once you bring it in, you save it as a Pandas object, which is called a data frame. So we call this df, the object. So if I run this, you see I have df.head. Head kind of gives you a peek into what's in the data set. It gives you about the top 5 rows, as you see right here. And this is alphabetical order, so we're seeing all of Afghanistan's data. All right, so very handy, good to just check out and make sure you're bringing in the data you thought you were. But next, let's look at some other features. So you can check out the type of a specific column. For instance, if we wanted to run some mathematical calculations on the population data, we want to make sure that it is of a numeric value. And so if we hit run, we get to see right here printed out. Yes, it is. It's int 64. So that's a numeric value, which will allow us to do some mathematical calculations. So great. If we just wanted to look at all the different columns, if you had a big data set, we could run this df.info, and that actually will give us, we only have 3 columns here, but you see how it shows us country that comes in as type object, and that makes sense because it's a string, and strings are objects. The year actually comes in as an int too. You probably don't need that to be an int, but it comes in because it's all numeric values, the whole column, and by default, Pandas will detect that and make it of type int. So it just happened that our population column was of all numbers too, and so that was converted to an int. So that's great to see. All right, so let's look at some more interesting things for really digging into your data. All right, so I'm going to show you the code here. This allows you to get a subset of the data frame and look at, say, a specific row. So in this example, we're actually looking at the maximum value. We use this ID max function of the population data from just all the year 1952 data. And so it goes through and only picks out what was 1952 for each country. And then what it does give you, so the max value is an index. And then we can use that index to actually look at what is that row, what's the information of that row. And so if we run this, we should get China. I think China was the number. Yep, see, so here's the index, and this is the actual country. And yep, it's 1952, it should be. And this was the data. I guess that's about 500 million. I'll show you later how you can put commas in here to make this more readable. All right, so I'm going to talk about a couple valuable functions for helping you clean your data. I mentioned that by default, the population column comes in as an int, as a numeric type. But if I was to go in here and put in a non-numeric type, I just typed in NA here. And this is quite common, where it might be that one of the years here, there was no data for the population. And so you might see something like NA, or the cell is just left empty. There's other designated letters that may be used to represent various things with your data instead of having a number in there. So this does happen quite frequently, and so you'll see though if I try to run this now that it's going to result in an error because it can't run this because all of the data is not of type int. It's not a numeric type, and so it's going to have an issue with that. And so the way around that is to convert your, I'm going to show you this function here that allows you to, I'll put it above that line so that all the data is changed before it tries to do this. And so this line here, we're resaving our column, the population column, and we're using this apply function, and there's a apply to numeric, which basically is going to force this to become a numeric value, this column. And this right here deals with the issue when it comes across something like the NA. It actually, errors equals coerced. If we didn't have that in, it wouldn't allow us to run this. But what this does is it forces all the fields, all the cells in that column to become numbers. And what will happen is it's going to become an NaN, not a number type, which is an actual thing in Python for dealing with values that can't be represented as numbers. But the nice thing is it will allow us to run our program. So we ran the program, we got our data back the same as we had before. But it just, the fact that if you look in here, you can see that we have our NA in there. Now that was in year 1957, so they didn't have to run any calculations on that. But if it did, it would run into some issues. So to deal with that, we can do a couple things. We could drop any rows that have NA in them, NaN, or we could do this thing where we fill anywhere where there's not a number. We just make it a 0. And that's often a good way to do it. But I'll show you both just so you can see. So we can do something like this. And I'll run this right here. And I'll make sure that we print out the head again right after doing that. And let's go ahead and run that. So you'll see that it actually skipped 1957 in here, and it didn't really skip it. It's not there anymore because it was dropped here. And so you can also use this fill NA and put a value in it. Right here we have 0, and that'll replace any field in your data frame that is NaN with a 0, which can come in handy, and that way calculations can be performed. So we'll resave our data frame now with the fill NA and replace with zeros. And here we go. And there we go. We filled it with a 0. So perfect. All right, we're going to stop there, but look for part 2 where we explore some more interesting Pandas functions. Thank you.